Oh, God.
Okay, and welcome back, dear listeners. Once again, it's the Flick Lab podcast, and tonight we are joined by our two previous guests who are making a welcomed return. There is our journalist, all-round film enthusiast, Allison. Nice to have you here with us.
Hi. Yeah, good to be back.
And also in returning is our former co-host, Zach. Nice to have you two here also at the studio, man.
It is so glad to be home, gentlemen. There's no place like home.
Don't lie to us, man. Liar and his lies has been exposed. But yeah, boy, what's in tonight's menu? Oh my god, if it's not Halloween Ends. It's finally here. The final chapter in a trilogy that in no way was conceived when the first film was already in production back in 2018. It's the franchise that has ended and come back like 5 times already, but now it ends, apparently. Join us tonight as we follow the adventures of two emotionally really healthy incels who labor to find a handcraft job in today's economy. So guys, what did you all think about Halloween Ends?
Oh, God.
I think the boogeyman is at large.
I'm all for putting in pets tonight, and I'm already betting €5 that Karri absolutely hated this movie.
Well, I'm not so much into that direction here. It's kind of all over the place, my opinion, like the movie. But let's get to it.
Yeah. So, well, I can start. Not yet with official opinions, but to get the ball rolling, I'm gonna start with a small point. Like I remember back in Halloween Kills, I made the statement that I did not believe that this trilogy, the new Halloween trilogy, was originally visioned to be a trilogy. And I got some flack from you guys, especially from you, Zach and Karri. Thanks for that, a whole bunch. But like now that we have seen the glorious ending to this trilogy, I must confess, I look back at my previous statement, and okay, you know, I confess when I'm wrong, so here goes. I'm absolutely adamant that this one was not conceived to be a trilogy when it was already back in 2018. This is, once again, this has all the hallmarks of a trilogy that was turned into a trilogy after like the first film was already in production or pre-production. This is those late bloomer trilogies.
This is like the subtext return of Busta Rhymes into the franchise via DGG, David Gordon Green, playing the audience in the last installment, being like, "Trick or treat, motherfucker."
Never thought I'd be so glad to hear Busta.
Well, yeah, this kind of is. This kind of is. The whole trilogy has been that way in one way or the other. Like, this is the case where you have a trilogy of 3 movies, and no movie actually is like the previous one. This is perhaps one of the most inconsistent film trilogies that I've seen for quite some time.
Yeah.
This gives Matrix trilogy a run for its money.
Yeah. I feel bad that I was so hard on Halloween Kills after seeing this.
Really?
Because, I mean, yeah, because at least Halloween Kills had some cool set pieces where, I mean, Halloween's supposed to be a slasher franchise, right? So I was shocked at how boring this was, and as was already alluded to, so disjointed. But I don't know, at least in Halloween Kills we had like a cool murder house, you know, whereas this, I'm like, what's the big culmination fight. Like, I guess Laurie gets interrupted writing her memoir and like fakes a suicide. And like, I don't know. I have so many thoughts about this, but I was just really struck by how disjointed it was, and how, if you're going to end ostensibly, right, because we know there's going to be more Halloween movies in the future, but like this is supposed to be the end, right? Shouldn't the primary focus be on this relationship between Laurie and Michael, because that's the backbone of the entire franchise? Most of this film is not spent with Laurie.
Yeah, this is such a mess, really. I wouldn't have thought that after 13 movies, the final to all of this, the big finale is not about Michael Myers, it's about some rando called Corey.
Who gives a shit? Like, who is this guy? Like, I'll say this: the opening scene where he's the babysitter and he
we got to get into that opening scene.
Lord, like, that genuinely surprised me. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is like, who is this guy? Like, and then we follow him and I'm like, I don't give a shit about this guy. Why are you expecting me to invest all of my emotions into a brand new character in the last hour of this franchise? It was very, very confusing. It felt like they were trying to elevate material that doesn't really need to be elevated. You know, like, you're not an A24 flick, you know, like, this is a slasher franchise. And I'm not saying they can't tackle like bigger themes and stuff, but it felt like they were so determined to get into the psychology of Mike Myers that it's like, I don't think it was necessary. I think it just made it very long and boring.
I think this is probably just a natural byproduct of the A24ification of horror films. Yes, I just made that word up. I think that because nowadays you can't just have a horror film or a villain who's just a villain for villain's sake. You've got to have some backstory. I don't know if this is if it's the maturation of the slasher genre, or if it's just, this is just the era we're in now, where nowadays you got to have villains who are complex and have backstories. But it definitely is that. Gone are the days of 1978 where you could just say, oh no, like, it's just some person who's crazy. Like, we got to have a reason now. And I think I feel like it has to have a supernatural element, because we still have films like It Follows, right? Where like a nameless, faceless monster or like Smile that just came out. Like, we don't know what this thing is, but if the thing is a person, their backstory has to be complicated. It's all about trauma, you know, like we have a flashback with their mother who's abusive, certainly, you know. But yeah, I think we could still have a monster who we don't understand its motives, but it can't be a person. The second it's a person, I agree.
Even if it's like Michael Myers, we have to get into like why he is this way.
Yeah, even if it's a faceless person behind a mask, we still recognize it's a person, and therefore we need a story.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say this too: that opening shocked the shit out of me.
It's well done.
I could not believe where it was going. It's so well done.
Yeah. Like, they brought him in and they questioned him, and then I think it was clear it was an accident, but he was still ostracized by this weird community nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think that's they did a good job, I think, of tying together the fact that now that Michael Myers is gone, we needed to have some sort of scapegoat for our rage.
Right.
And I did like how they sort of made that connection of, well, we gotta hate someone, so let's hate this kid.
So my mind is still so all over the place about the film, and I'm trying to compartmentalize all my thoughts here. But at the end of the day, well, at least it's something different, as said here. It's really about the consequences of horror on the collective psyche of the town. Kind of what I was saying in the Halloween Kills episode, when I guessed that the film is going to the David Etchison Halloween 4 script, abandoned script, in some level. And kind of surprisingly, I guess I was kind of right about that. At least there's not any ghosts, ghost Michaels or any of that. It seems to be flesh and blood story. I guess that even depends on how you take the movie.
it kind of dances around that concept. Like I noticed this one too. I did notice that there's some of the spiritual similarities between this one and the unproduced Halloween 4 script, where it's not the same situation. If I remember correctly, in the Halloween 4 script case, it was the situation where Haddonfield had banned the celebration of Halloween.
Yeah.
Right.
As some type of like an act to force themselves to get over Michael and to kind of be rid of with Michael Myers and his past. And in this movie, that's not what the Haddonfield has done. They haven't really like banned Halloween, but instead they have taken the opposite approach, where they almost forcibly try to celebrate Halloween. This is especially with Laurie's character, who, like, following the past films, now makes this try-hard attempt of having all the Halloween shit. I'm gonna move to a nice house, I'm gonna decorate it for Halloween, I'm gonna make some absolutely disgusting pumpkin pie or something like that. I'm gonna have the Halloween things. And another thing that this kind of shares in its spiritual DNA with the script is the concept of Michael Myers possibly being some type of a spiritual entity or force that just looms
Right.
in the background, but does not take presence in the town. The film negates this at the last minute. Like, you have the final showdown, which brings Michael back to flesh, and in keeping with the 2018 film, takes the stance that Michael Myers is nothing supernatural, he's just an old asshole in a mask. But up until that point, you gotta have this Michael as some type of a, well, almost godlike entity.
I genuinely believe that most of the movie I thought that Michael Myers is not in this movie, and that it's all in Corey's head or Laurie's head or their heads collectively somehow, and some kind of a trauma that they can't shake.
Yeah, I was surprised. I talked to a couple people who they were texting me as they were watching it, and they were like, is Michael Myers actually there, or are they imagining him? And like, maybe just because I've bought into the mythology so much, it was very clear to me that he was actually there. And this, like, they weren't hallucinating collectively. But I think that could have been a more interesting approach. And maybe people would have gotten frustrated, like, you know, when a film is like, oh, the whole thing was a dream, you know? But I kind of think it would have been more interesting that way if we leaned into Michael Myers as a force of evil, and he can, like, much like Freddy Krueger, like, invade your brain. Like, I think that would have been more interesting than, I don't know, he has, like, a protege in this dork who we don't care about.
I think that maybe they tried to do this idea of Michael Myers is really just a substitute for PTSD, for trauma, that kind of thing, but you can't do that all the way, because you're right. Like, we came to see a slasher flick. We didn't come to see a psychological thriller. That's not what we signed up for. And so I think they have to make it a real person. But I think this one at least teeters the line closer than any of the previous films of Michael Myers really just could be a stand-in for your trauma that you have not dealt with. And maybe you think, oh, no, I killed it. I dealt with my issue, and you just sort of put it on the shelf. But no, it's still sitting there on the shelf, and maybe it takes years for it to resurface, but it's still there.
What I thought they were doing was, I thought it was like a passing of the torch. Like, when Corey started to wear the mask, I was like, oh my God, are we going to see, like, this is how you make and that ultimately is what they were doing. Like, this is how you make a Michael Myers. But I thought, like, the spirit had, like, passed into him. And I was like, oh, this is why this guy cannot be killed, because he's just taking new bodies. But then, yeah, it ultimately was sort of a crap out. And I know, like, by the time something like this goes to production, like 1 million people have touched it and changed it. And I am just curious, like, what the original intention was. And if this was like a bunch of studio notes, like, Michael Myers absolutely has to be real. He cannot be a figment of their imagination. People will be pissed if you do this.
Well,
I think that the passing of the spirit from Michael to Corey, to me, I think is another piece of that. This is really about trauma, and that you can think that, because he himself went through Corey, went through this horrible experience, and then because, as we're sort of like learning through these films, monsters are not born, they're made. That this is how you make a Michael Myers, and that will never end. And the way that through the last however many Halloweens there have been, 9, 10, something,
13.
13. Oh, Jesus. In the way that, like, through 13 films, we keep saying Michael cannot be killed. Yeah, because evil can't be killed. Trauma can't be killed. It's always going to get passed on. And I think even things like generational trauma, which I think we as a sort of a culture are now talking more and more about, I think this is a great example of generational trauma, and it just continues from one generation to another because it's never fully dealt with, or maybe you try to deal with it, but it's so big, it's insurmountable.
I have to agree to an extent with Dave McRae. Like, he's a pretty prominent YouTube guy, voiceover dude who speaks a lot about Halloween and really knows his Halloween shit. He says that the whole Corey story could be a great anthology piece,
right,
in and of itself, if it would be just about Corey, then concentrate and centralize on that. But now that we have the killing off of Michael, the end battle at the end, it seems really kind of forced and pasted in, and I think they could have changed that in a way to tie somehow the Corey story more strongly with the Michael story. But I tried so hard on these two watches to find out what would be the kind of cohesive element tying these stories together, what would justify that Michael is at the end there. And it just feels like, what the hell are you doing here, Michael? Get lost.
well,
Yeah, I hate to be this person because I know this is like annoying when people do this, but I don't know what the rules of this universe are. So like, and I understand it's been so many years and so many different filmmakers, and like it's hard to be consistent with this stuff, but like, is Mike Myers an evil spirit who cannot be killed, or is he a dude? Because like, if he's an evil spirit, I don't understand how Laurie is like handing his ass to him in these fight scenes, like that's very confusing. Or is Laurie a supernatural creature? Like, what's the deal? And like, when he looks at Corey, what is Michael Myers seeing? That, like, does he connect with him like they're soulmates, like a kindred spirit, like you have the same darkness inside? Like, we never get an explanation of what is happening. And in addition to me not caring about Corey, it was just hard to get invested in this world because I'm like, I don't really understand what the rules are.
Is it the lack of his... I don't think he's really convincing me all the way.
No, I hate to criticize actors because I think if the script's good enough and you have a good enough director, you can get an okay performance out of anyone. I think he's just not well written, and he doesn't really fit in this film or in this phase of Halloween. It's just confusing. It's frustrating because he's steering us away from, I think, what the heart of this story is, which is Laurie.
Rohan Campbell, I listened to one of his interviews with Andy Marichuk, and he said that what's special about this movie and what I fully wanted and intended to do is to create a movie that everyone can take their choice out of it and everyone can have their own narrative of what happens and what's appropriate, or, I don't know, what's understandable, I think. How do you take that?
Sounds like he's like, yeah, everyone just come to your own conclusions there, which I think is poor filmmaking.
In this case, at least, I would say so, yeah.
I will say, I wonder how long it took all of you to figure out, they're just going to make another Michael Myers here. I'm gonna pat myself on the back and say I figured it out very quickly. Whenever after the initial the opening scene, which is great, and then when you then start seeing him and he's like, down in the dumps and he's going to work at his dad's like chop shop, and I was like, oh, he's going to be wearing a blue like jumper, like like the One Piece thing that Michael Myers always.
Oh right.
I was like, oh, I'm putting this shit together.
So that's interesting. Like that. Okay. Now I understand. Writers do this really annoying thing that's shorthand for showing someone as a quote unquote failure where they make them a mechanic. And I'm like, how is he a loser? Because he can fix cars.
Do you know what happened to our society if we didn't have mechanics?
That's the thing. It's a very like elitist thing. Like, I don't know. It's just an annoying thing that I notice in a lot of scripts. Like, that's not shorthand for being a failure. He just has a practical skill that you probably don't have. Yeah, I probably knew when he got his ass handed to him by the marching band. That was interesting. In this universe, the marching band are jocks, I guess, or maybe that was a joke. Maybe that was supposed to be a joke. Like he's so low on the totem pole that even the marching band beats him up. But that was a choice.
Wow, that was a choice. Yeah, I think when the guy playing tuba is gonna beat your ass. Yeah, that's not great.
Well, Zach, I think I was too preoccupied here, like just figuring out all the other stuff. What's going on with this movie? Michael Myers hasn't really appeared at the 80% part of this movie, and this film and the Michael Myers execution. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about that anymore, because I think everyone has kind of lost hope. All hope that the execution would be like it should be, at least in my books. Like, this has all the hallmark reading failures of a David Gordon Green Halloween film in the Michael Myers character reading sense. Like, where to start? He can't hold a fight with a random guy. He just loses his mask. In a John Carpenter movie, that's kind of insulting towards Michael's character, or showing what he's doing when he's kind of off duty. Now he's in a sewer. I don't know if we need to see that, or I guess he has weakened a bit after the Halloween Kills events.
I really like when we see Michael Myers like driving a car. I just like when he kind of like does random normal things where it's like, oh yeah, like how does he get around? Like, is he just stalking through the forest? And like whenever a mode of transportation is involved, I'm like, that's funny. Like picturing him like sitting on a ferry or something.
I remember the original, the 1978 one, and I remember, there's these great sort of tracking shots from inside a vehicle, like following people as they walk on the sidewalk. And to me, that's what makes it so creepy and stalkery, and that whole like he's always watching you. Like, but to me, the 78 and these films are just they're on two different planets.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say as well is, speaking of sort of poor writing, can we just stop with the macho bullshit and the whole like, how do we show like a guy is like not a good person? Let's just turn him into the most like creepoid, like skeevy guy possible, like the guy who pulls Allison over, the cop.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Oh my god, it's just so like. Can we not come up with anything else? There's no other.
That was another
way.
moment. Yeah, like where I'm like, again, I know you want to elevate this. I don't think you should. I think that was a mistake. But like the Me Too-ness of this movie, I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like so tacked on. It's never dealt with. It's just another example of like, why does anyone live in this community? First of all, it seems like there's like 5 people in the entire town, and like all of them hate Laurie.
Sorry, Allison.
No, go ahead.
You're definitely onto something there. Would you say that the social commentary is a little too tacked on as well? That is too much on the surface? That is not really on the subtext? That it's more like screaming on your face, that trauma, 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 trauma? Maybe something that Jamie Lee Curtis really wanted to emphasize, but somehow...
Yeah, and I don't want to blame her, but this feels like very much her, where like... You know, she's a liberal feminist and like she has a progressive message. And I like hearing her talk about the franchise. Like, I know she wanted to move things in that direction. I'm not necessarily saying like they couldn't have tackled these things, but it's just trying to be such a different thing at this point. And it's really clumsily done that I don't know, whatever she was hoping to get out of this, I don't think they stuck the landing.
What about could we try to take some emotional distance to this movie and not think about it as like the third part of this DGG trilogy where you're supposed to have this epic showdown all through the movie, or that's probably what people's expectations were. If you remove that and just think of it as some kind of a fucked up anthology piece, do you think people will love this movie a whole lot later? Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think anybody's gonna love Corey? It really really depends on how much you're invested in Corey, because he's so much of this film. Like, we got the whole Badlands storyline with like Laurie's daughter Allison, and like, do you care about this character? And if the answer is yes, then maybe like in 10 years when we look back at this and there's been 5 more Halloween movies, it'll seem charming. But like, I don't think it even stands as an anthology film.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I wish that he was a little better written, but I do think that I think he gave a great performance as this, oh my gosh, this kid who's just like so far down in the dumps, and who is so like thirsty for breaking out of this hole that he's in. And I think that it serves. I think that was great, and I wish that we could have preserved that. But then when you bring this is the part that I really didn't get. Allison sort of meeting him and having a little attraction and like wanting to like get to know him, and then Allison goes from someone who survived Michael Myers in the first one and in the second one, and then in the third one, she so quickly is like, burn it all, burn it down. That was wow. I got a little dizzy turning my head that fast.
What about Laurie playing matchmaker between two deeply traumatized people? Like, what in her head? Like, I know we're supposed to think Laurie recognizes Corey as like this kindred spirit because they're both outcasts. This community hates both of them. So she like gets his pain. But why would you then send that in the direction of your daughter? Like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah, that's bad matchmaking.
That's bad momming.
Bad momming. Bad grandmomming.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, bad grandmomming. But yeah, like, Laurie, use your head. Like, you know what a fucked up dude can do to a woman's life, and you're gonna make your granddaughter go through that? Like, just because she's traumatized doesn't mean she needs more trauma in her life. Like, if anything, she needs like a boring accountant type who can offer stability, you know?
A travel agent. A CPA.
Exactly.
I don't know if there was any matchmaking really needed from Jamie Lee's part, Laurie's part, because gosh darn it, Andy Matichuk is horny in this movie, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'm not touching that one.
But seriously, that's a huge part of the movie, because she's so kind of desperately trying to make this relationship go and work, and even to the extent that she goes against her own grandmother with arguments that don't make any goddamn sense. So I think she just wanted to get laid really badly.
I didn't really buy the whole pivot from, okay, so Corey's a like nerdy dork in the beginning, and then I think at some point we're supposed to think he's sexy around the time he gets a motorcycle. And
Allison, don't you know motorcycle equals sexy? Come on, Allison.
I don't know. Maybe I just really didn't vibe with this actor. You know, again, I don't like to talk shit about actors, but I didn't really go with them on that journey when I was supposed to suddenly find him hot. I was just confused about what the fuck Allison was doing. I'm like, get away from him and get out of this community.
Could I ask everyone, what are your thoughts on Laurie's character changing kind of drastically from the previous movie, that now she's not so paranoid about where she's living in a bunker or a super sheltered building. She's just in a regular building. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. I know that was a big change, and like she got her hair did, and like she's looking great. She's got like her cute little outfits together now, but I liked seeing, I mean, she's still traumatized, but I like seeing Laurie like thriving in her own way. And I like that she's got like, she still wants to date, and like she goes to the grocery store and she's working on her memoir. Like I didn't necessarily hate that because I could not stand another movie of like wild-haired Jamie Lee Curtis like screaming at everybody. Like it was nice that Laurie had at least a few moments of something good happening to her.
I agree. I think that it was nice to see, like, this is a person who has experienced an immense amount of trauma, and yet with getting sober and getting some therapy, maybe some medication as well, we don't know, that like there is life beyond your trauma. And I think that I imagine that was probably something that was important to Jamie Lee Curtis. I would imagine, having this to show like there is light at the end of that tunnel. You can get through it.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of goddamn talking in this movie. All kinds of metaphors and references that somebody's this and that. Even references that, Laurie, you are the Michael Myers here. I think these are supposed to kind of confuse the viewer that what are you suggesting movie here? And maybe it's trying to leave some weird doors open for the future. But I think none of it really leads anywhere. It's just, you can't really pull anything together from that.
This is the first time I've considered that in a future movie they might have Michael Myers' spirit invade Laurie. And I'm like, oh no. Because that seems like that might happen.
Whoa. Can we talk about the ending?
Okay.
Yeah, they killed the shit out of him.
So, I do have to say, I did love sort of the visual callback of Laurie Strode wearing the blue button-up, the same shirt that she wore in the first one. So I just love that. But that ending, I thought was very, very good. It very sort of like satisfying. Which is it's what we want in a horror film. We want a good, satisfying, like, death and satisfying ending. And I realized that because in these David Gordon Green films, this is under the premise that none of the sequels ever took place. We only had 1978, and we can ignore all the rest. And I had forgotten that for a moment, and that, of course, at the end of 2018's Halloween, we talked about it in the last episode of like, really, like she didn't want to like make sure like see the body, like make sure he was dead. Because we didn't already have 8 sequels where of course he showed up alive again. So from her perspective, like, no, I set the building on fire, so yeah, he's dead. Like that sort of made sense to me in retrospect. And then he, of course, then in Halloween Kills, we find out, no, he survived. And so I think then going into this film, it does set up a really good reason for when it's at the end and it's like, oh, no, motherfucker, we are going to, as, my soulmate Randy in the Scream series says, basically in the third one, you got to cryogenically freeze his head, decapitate him, or blow him up. And that's what they did. They were like, oh, no, we're doing it. We're going to make sure he's dead. And we're going to let the whole fucking town see it.
That's the thing. I love that the whole town comes together. It truly reminded me of, have you heard about how when they caught Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, like how they caught him? Are you familiar?
No.
So the town chased him down. Like somebody recognized him on the street and said, that's the Night Stalker. And like the community arrested him. They chased him down and caught him and held him until the police got there. One of the greatest ends to a serial killer of all time. I love that the community that he was terrorizing came together and caught him. But I was like kind of reminded of that, where the community like passes his body overhead and everybody is contributing to killing this horrible entity that had been terrorizing them. I really did like that.
Yeah, I liked the healing that it can provide. I mean, obviously, this is going to be cathartic for Laurie and for Allison, but because in Halloween Kills, we just sort of see that this it's like a plague for this town that just keeps keeping the town infected with this awfulness. And now, like, let the whole town come and see. Like, that's it. It's done. It's over, and we can all, as a community, move forward.
Yeah, maybe to kind of sum it up, what I think you could think of this film, there could be like 4 different scenarios. Let's say the scenario 1, that you just think that this film is pure garbage, plain and simple. The second scenario could be that you think it's not a real Halloween movie because Myers is not at the focus point. Or you may think that this is a great or decent idea, but this is the wrong movie to end the trilogy of DGG. Or you think this is a great or decent idea, but the execution is lacking or doesn't make sense in the movie. Or this might be the best Halloween movie in over 20 years for you. So metaphorical and intelligent. But for me, yeah, doesn't come together.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Quickies?
Yeah. Oh, one more point before that. The Halloween 3 fonts. I should have figured at that point that, something is a little funky here. And, it takes like an anthology approach, as you would assume from those. Like, I've seen these movies too many times, but that could be a like nice indication in the opening titles.
Interesting.
Special mention for an actor goes to...
I would give it to, I don't have the cast in front of me, but the little guy who was the head of the marching band. Because even though I didn't connect with Corey, I detested him so much that whenever he and Corey were going head to head, I was rooting for Corey. So I'm like, this kid is doing a good job of being a little piece of shit.
Yeah, I hated him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody who's a bad guy seems to have a name Terry. So he's called Terry, and he's played by Michael Barbieri.
Yes. And you know who else? Kyle Richards. I think she's consistently great when she shows up in these. I loved her little clip-on bangs, and I love that Lindsay is now a tarot card reader and a bartender. Like, I think those 2 careers should be fused into one more often, because I would love to go to a bar and order a drink and have a tarot card reading. But it was good to see Lindsay.
Oh my gosh, and the tarot card moment when is it Lindsay who then adds that the card death, I think it's Jamie Lee, whoever says that the tarot card death it's not a bad thing in tarot cards because it means new beginning. A nice hint there, nudge nudge.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna give it to Miss Curtis. It's been 44 years since she's been playing this character, and she's done. She has said publicly she's not doing any more Halloween films. Maybe, like Allison, like you said, Halloween may continue, but it will continue without Laurie Strode. And so just tip of the hat, Jamie Lee Curtis, for 44 amazing years.
Yes.
I would give it to Jamie Lee as well, because she really pulls it off. And I think she's just pleasure to follow every time.
Yeah, on my end, it's gonna go to Rohan Campbell, who played Corey in this film. Like, the repeated question here tonight has been like, who gives a shit about Corey? But even though the character doesn't completely make the landing, and but Campbell perhaps isn't the best one to drive the romantic lead, Corey still worked, I would say, relatively well, like surprisingly well. It's pretty solid as a character, and Campbell does still make the character work for great detail. So, from my end, it's going to be Rohan.
I agree, Henrik. He was like my second pick. If I could do a second special mention to an actor, it was him. I think I've never seen him before. I've never seen him in other work before, but I think he's good things are going to happen for him.
In the last movies, I've been so bored of Michael Myers that I really didn't mind that they did this whole different story. The whole time that I was in the cinema, I was just, I don't know, glued to my seat, but I didn't say anything, didn't move. I was just there, kind of in a zone. trying to figure this shit out. How was your cinema experience, by the way?
Mine was great. I watched it in Dolby.
Yeah, I watched it at home, which is how I watched Halloween Kills too. I'm really glad actually that they did the streaming option.
Was it on Peacock? Is that right?
Yeah, it's on Peacock, along with theater, releasing it in theater. Just because, like, I don't know if I would have gone to the theater to watch it and spend money on it, but it was very smart to have it on streaming too.
Really a pain in the ass to get to watch these movies. This latest one, I didn't think that it's even playing in the Philippines, but it was exclusive movie in only one theater chain, and yeah, took a little digging. Anyway, bring to attention some very small role in the film that you found somehow worth highlighting for whatever reason. Do you have anything on this?
Go, Allison. Ladies first.
Let's see. What if my answer is just Kyle Richards for everything?
Kyle motherfucking Richards.
Oh, you know, the kid in the beginning. I really, really liked that opening scene, and I think his name is Michael. Oh wait, no, that is an old headshot of that kid. I don't know what his name is, but I really like the scene with the kid and Corey and the parents being helicopter parents and saying like, he can't have sugar, he can't watch scary things, and then we smash cut to them watching a very scary movie, and yeah, the turn that the kid is like has been faking this innocent appearance. I was like, this dynamic is fun. Like I like watching them together.
I will go with Omar J. Dorsey as the Sheriff Baker because I think that his appearance in this film is weird because he's not needed for anything. He just appears for a few seconds, but he's only there to be a familiar face, I think, to tie everything together in a way.
I'm going to give it to Rick Moose, who's the guy who plays Corey's dad. That scene when he gives him the bike, I really felt it. I just really felt that scene.
Me too.
It was like, wow, his heart is really going out to this kid. And it was before I realized they were father and son. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just was like, oh, I immediately like feel like a connection to this character.
Also, shout out to the writer in that regard because they didn't spoon feed us the fact that he's his dad, and they just sort of like revealed it organically. He wasn't like, here you go, son, you know, like that really ham-fisted way. So that was well done too. Yeah.
I really don't have anything for this one. I'm just gonna give it to the bully character Terry's father's haircut.
Okay, well, what resonated with you the most or the least?
I guess just the fact that, like, I do believe Jamie Lee Curtis that this is the last time she wants to go through this. And she's, you know, satisfied with this being the closing chapter. So I just really liked seeing her in this movie. Like, we didn't get many Laurie scenes, or as many Laurie scenes as I would have liked, but I don't know, seeing Laurie be happy, making plans for the future, you know, like writing her what sounds like a very bad book, but like at least she has goals, right? And it's so dark, but I do like the way she lured Michael Myers upstairs by pretending to kill herself. Was just like so dark. Because you could imagine a timeline in a reality where Laurie would have ended things that way, but not our Laurie. And that was all very satisfying, seeing like Laurie process her trauma.
I don't know why, but when I saw that Laurie is baking pies, I was like almost hysterically laughing in the audience. Yeah, it was just a funny switch in the whole Laurie take.
Yeah, some of it was very tongue-in-cheek, and you could tell it was deliberate. Like, wouldn't it be funny if Laurie was baking pies, even though, like, not baking them successfully, just, like, burning dough, basically. But, yeah, that was very fun.
I was going to say, I'm going to go with Allison's just, like, 180. I didn't get it. I didn't feel it. I don't see how a person who goes through what she went through could just so quickly shift. I mean, like, it's like Anakin turning to the dark side. They did 3 fucking movies to set up Anakin turning to the dark side. Because you need something like that. She just turned in a matter of minutes, and then all of a sudden then turned right back. Like, no, sorry.
Yeah. There's a lot of moments like that I just don't buy when they are so forcefully getting pissed off at Laurie and whatnot. And these comments from Allison, like, believe me? You want me to believe you? Yeah. Like, she saved your ass in the previous installments, but she's just going here, like, because of the hysteria that she caused when I trusted you. My friends are dead. My parents are dead. You're the one that's capable of fucking harm. This makes no sense at all to me. Like, is she so desperate to leave Haddonfield? What's her motivation? Makes no sense. For me, the last scene, the last scene, like, finally there's some genuine hope and happiness, hopefully for Laurie, and we have a kind of a happy ending, change of mood. I like that.
Yeah, the whole cherry blossom thing, I really liked.
Loved it.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually grant this one to the discussions that the film has about the nature of violence and trauma. It's something that they have been kind of addressing before, especially in the 2018 film, but the 2018 was mostly just about trauma. And Kills, on the other hand, was not really about trauma at all. It was just some small ponderings about the nature of violence. And I think that at the end, they finally managed to tie together the two discussion points, both what trauma means and what it can cause, and also the violence, what causes violence and what violence is from Kills. So I did like the fact that this was not so much this one argument that we are having. It was more of a discussion about what these two things mean, and I did enjoy that quite a lot.
Halloween Kills is an experimental art film, as per David Gordon Green. In one adjective, how would you describe the film?
Ooh, bad.
Convoluted.
Complete.
Meditative.
Hey, this might be an important question. Do you allow for a horror franchise to take a detour and be more like a drama thriller, like Halloween Ends is? In principle, do you accept that?
I think it still has to be coherent. Like, there has to be rules, especially in horror or fantasy or sci-fi. There has to be some kind of base reality for the spectacular set pieces to pop, because otherwise it's just like you feel completely unmoored. Like, I didn't know why anything was happening in this film. Like, when Corey is like, "Can you teach me how to do it?" to Michael Myers, I'm like, "Do what? Stab people?" Like, honestly, like, what is Michael Myers teaching you? Like, I guess just uncontrollable rage, but then, like, I need to know that's what's happening. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, it's just very muddled.
And I agree. I think you can. And I think a really good example of that is actually Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining.
Yeah.
Dr. Sleep is not a really horror film. I think it's a drama. And there's some supernatural and some horror elements to it, but it is a full drama, and you care about these characters. It's not about what gross thing can I see next. It's about what's going to happen to these people that I care about. But it is very much still grounded.
That's a good example, too, because the rules in that universe are clear, like, it's clear that there are these evil creatures who are sucking the life force or the shining out of, the good guys. And like, it's very, very clear from the get-go. So yeah, then we're free to invest our emotions in these characters who we care about.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't just accept it. I fully endorse the attempts when horror movies, they try to kind of reach out and be something more. Like, I have had this pet peeve for years already, and we have fought with Zach in I don't remember what previous episode, but somewhere about the whole labeling of horror films.
Yeah.
Like we have this tendency where we have the always running argument. Horror is a trash genre. There's only bad movies. And whenever you try to bring up a counter argument to actually make a case for a good horror film, you name drop something. You say Halloween. And the response is, well, that's more of a suspense movie, more of a thriller. It's not really horror. You say Alien. Well, it's more of a sci-fi movie. It's not really horror. You say The Exorcist. Well, Exorcist is more drama. It's not really horror.
Who cares?
And then you land into something absolute trifle shit. Some jump scare fest that is nearly unwatchable, and at that point everybody is willing to grant that that's a horror movie. And we have this circle like horror can't be good because every time horror tries to be good, it's all immediately labeled to another film genre, and horror is the only one that gets this treatment. So I'm fully against Zach here when he says that Dr. Sleep is more drama than horror. Bullshit, it's horror that has dramatic elements. So when it comes to also with Halloween Ends, which puts its markings, it puts its gaming chips on largely in the drama category. I'm all for it. Go ahead. Maybe I don't know. Maybe after 150 years in the future, when horror has spread its wings more and attempted more with different infusing different genres into it, perhaps then, in that long distant future, horror films can finally get out of the film appreciation slum where it now has to reside in. Here's hoping. But even though the dramatic aspects doesn't always work in Halloween Ends, I'm extremely grateful that it actually made the effort to try.
Okay, and in 5 seconds or less, do you think these films have any staying power or legacy?
Oh yeah, for sure. This is the end of the Laurie Strode saga.
Exactly. If this is indeed Jamie Lee Curtis's last Halloween, it'll be a classic just for that reason.
Yeah, I watched Halloween 2, Halloween H2O, and the DGG trilogy just to kind of get a better picture of what has been going on here, as if I didn't know, but needed a little refresher. And I hold H2O even in a higher degree than before. I think it's one of the better sequels. It's fun. It's fun.
Agreed.
I fucking love H2O. I think it's
such a
definitely
bad rap.
top tier. I don't know why. I think it's amazing.
I agree. I've seen so many lists where it's ranked so low, and I'm like, I had such a good time seeing that in the theater.
Yeah, we need more LL Cool J in horror films.
Yeah, absolutely. Put the films in order of preference from the DGG trilogy.
Oh, I can never do these. My head caves in when I try to put them in order.
I'm gonna say 1-3-1-3-2.
I'm gonna say 3-1-2.
I'm also gonna take Karri's pickings here. My favorite is Ends.
Wow, okay.
Followed by the 2018, and the Kills is even though I did like it, but it's my least favorite of these ones. It's kind of a close tie with Ends and 2018. You have kind of it's kind of the whole trilogy. It's kind of like a rock band thing. You find a modern you find a modern version of a rock band that you previously liked. Let's say that you really have liked Guns N' Roses, and you find a modern equivalent to that band, and you are like, yeah, this is really hitting it. And 2018 is that band playing extremely close to Guns N' Roses, nailing exactly the vibe, nailing exactly the beats, being really good replacement for new Guns N' Roses material. Halloween Ends is the weird psychedelic like experimental phase that band has on the later career, and Kills unfortunately lands in the middle where it's not completely in neither camp. It's no more longer the good replacement for the original necessary. It has a one leg in that territory, but it's not completely there, and it also has one leg in the experimental territory. Like it's trying with the psychedelics, but it does not yet make a full commitment, and because of that, it's like the real competition is between Ends and 2018, where 2018 is the fine-tuned machine that plays all the hits, and Ends is the weird psychedelic drug-filled, experimental thing. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to reward the experimentalism.
Hear, hear.
You really know you're watching Halloween Ends when?
For me, it's when you hear that soundtrack. That music is just iconic.
I would say an element that they abandoned that actually I wish they would bring back is Michael Myers' point of view, like in the film where we see him hiding and like peeking out at Laurie. Like that was so iconic.
Yeah, we got none of that in this one.
None.
Not one time.
I would say when one of the main actors requires hormone-suppressing medication.
You really know you're watching the Halloween films when it's a roller coaster of emotions, from babysitter stabbings to Romeo and Juliet.
Did you like the film?
No, I did not.
I'm going to say a soft yes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something that is still somewhat hard to swallow because it was so surprisingly completely different piece than the previous two films, or well, the entire franchise really. But yeah, like I already put it on the top of my my order of preference. So obviously, yeah, I did like this one quite a lot.
Okay, I will try to be. Sorry, but I have to go on a little explanation on this because it's quite a complicated topic, because it's a bit hard to say when I don't understand the film fully. I think I understand the film, but I also don't understand the film. I understand that it's wanting to tell this anthology story, which would be all right in and of itself, as I mentioned, but what I don't understand is how the filmmakers see the story of Karri and Michael coalesce in the film. So the movie doesn't, in my eyes, do anything to justify this coexistence of these two stories. It says that evil can change shape. It does. So how does Michael fit in all this beyond just being part of the collective trauma of the town? I don't see the inherent connection. And I don't think the core story is strong enough or cohesive enough. And the townspeople argumentations don't make sense very often. So my gut says that, yeah, no is the answer that I will stick with in the future as well. I don't really like the film, after all. Would you watch the film again?
Absolutely.
I'm probably not going to watch the entire film again, but I'm just going to watch that opening scene again.
I swear I was just about to say that. Yeah, I would watch that first 10 minutes like a short film. Like, speaking of if they could do Halloween anthologies, I'm like, if you want to put out like quick little, I don't want to say TikTok, but like that is such a perfectly encapsulated tragedy, like the first 10 minutes of that, and just say, oh, it's the spirit of Mike Myers causing all of these bad things to happen. Like that's kind of interesting. But yeah, that opening is really, really effective.
I don't need to watch this ever again. No. Okay, would you recommend the film?
If you want to be a completionist, I guess, sure. Like, I don't think that you're going to hate the film and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you forced me to watch that. But like, I guess if you really wanted to just take a ride and just go through the Halloweens, yeah, sure. I would add this to the ones of like, yeah, you should watch the David Gordon Green trilogy.
Yeah, it's not a bad film. It's just a really shitty Michael Myers film. And it's kind of a mediocre anthology film. But Actually, there was quite a lot that I did like too, just small bits and pieces. Yeah, it's just fun to see Jamie Lee. She's great in here, but it's not really enough to float the boat. Henrik?
This one gets pretty tricky, really, to say. Would I recommend Halloween Ends? It's pretty damn good movie. It does have its problems both in narrative. Sometimes the performances are not as great as they could be. But altogether, like, acting isn't bad. The cinematography is good, remarkable in some scenes, and it has surprisingly well thought out story in its core. The main problem here basically very much comes down to your relationship with the franchise, I would say, because Halloween Ends, it's one of those weird meta movies where it wants to be both about the franchise itself and its audience. This is a film that wants to talk about the connection that the audiences have with the franchise. And it has, at times, not even that kind words to say about that connection. Same way as it also finds some pretty disturbing connections and associations when it comes to, the franchise itself. So, and because of that, it's such a complete departure from what you have had before. Like, I can very easily believe that if you are, or it has already been shown in the reviews. If you're a Halloween fan, you easily come into this one and you are hugely disappointed by what's going to be on the screen, and you're like, what on earth is this bullshit? But I, on the other hand, I really did like that meta aspect, and I did like that. I like the previous meta horror films that we have had, like Scream, which is really in your face about its meta nature. In this one, the meta is more in the subtext. It's more in the way how the cinematography works, and basically what the characters, how they operate inside the Haddonfield, and what kind of connections you can draw from those characters. So even though I really liked Halloween Ends, it's kind of hard one to recommend, because there's a huge risk that you come as an existing Halloween fan and you are largely disappointed by the movie. So it's I'm gonna recommend, actually. I'm gonna give a Halloween Ends a recommendation. There is a risk that you are going to absolutely hate it and you are going to feel disappointed, perhaps even insulted by the movie. But I do think that's a risk that is worth taking.
And dear listener, would you recommend Halloween Ends? Come on, share your opinion on our social media pages. We are available on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and library/odyssey.com, and Patreon, where you can support us. Our theme music was by Nick Grivell. You can find him at instagram.com/prodbyof. And Malek Akkad shall return.
So guys, where can everybody find you?
Find me on Twitter at OKGayByrd, that's Bird with a Y, and with the Gay Twist. This is the bi-weekly podcast hosted by two homosexuals who talk about news, politics, and pop culture, but with a gay twist. That's www.withagaytwist.com.
Perfect. Where can we find Allison?
I'm also trapped on Twitter at Allison Kilkenny. It's just my name on all social media platforms. You can just find me under my name.
Perfect. Anything else you guys want to add, or time to close the lab?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. See you in a fortnight.
Oh, until then.
Later.
Well, I'm at the front currently. Or if not today, tomorrow, yeah,